this is the thing that I was really intrigued by.
Yeah.
Cap starts asking him about it. What was the one move, if you could go back, that you didn't make? And I think he was originally trying to get him to say Verlander, because Cap got a call from Verlander's agent saying,
and he said that on that show too.
We want to go to the Cubs. And so Cap called Hoyer, and Hoyer at that time said, we're done with moves. We don't have any money left.
Yeah.
So he says, yep, that would have been a good one. He admits that was a mistake. He admits that Schwarber was one that bothers him because he believed in the player. But after COVID, he said, I had to cut payroll. I was told I had to cut payroll. I cut payroll, and we didn't have the luxury of waiting to see if he was going to develop full-time into the player we thought he could be.
That one, okay.
I don't know if I buy all of that, but that's still obviously a mistake.
Let me just read the full quote.
Okay.
Because I was up late, and I have a whole thread on my Twitter account about this. Regarding non-tendering Schwarber, he said, obviously, one I look back on was non-tendering Schwarber. We just didn't have any money after COVID. I had to cut money, and that was the move we had to make. I look back on that one. It just feels like we were right about the player in the end. We were right. We ran out of time and patience and money. I feel like he should be a Cub.
Ran out of time how? Like, I understand the money part, but how did they
up to
run
that
out?
point, he hadn't been consistent, and now you're forced to cut somebody.
Yeah. But the question...
They cut the wrong guys.
The question that I bring up about
this, they traded the wrong people.
Yeah.
Look at you, Darvish. Look at the return they got.
Well, yes, Owen Casey could be something. But
one guy for you, Darvish,
right.
who's still pitching well?
You're right. He's a Japanese legend, yes. My big thing about that quote that I'm scratching my head about, though, is that they eventually signed Jock Peterson for like, what, $2 million more?
Yes.
Was $2 million really the difference? Like,
it was penny wise and pound foolish.
What blows my mind about that particular quote is that A, he said it in front of a camera that was recording, and B, that he actually said it. Like, I can't believe that he put that out there for the entire world to see.
He admitted it. He admitted he was wrong about DJ LeMahieu. He said when we came in, we probably wanted to make a trade just to make a trade too quickly, and Randy Bush and some of the guys that were still on the staff were like, great makeup. This kid could be good. He's big. Could be a hitter. Could be a player. And they were like, what
Just
we had,
guys.
The scouting report I had in San Diego, not that great. The one we had in Boston on him, not that great. We should have listened to them. We traded him away. That was a mistake. But he stops Cap at one point. He's like, there is one that keeps me up at night. I'm not going to tell you what it is right now. Someday I will. But he's like, there's one that
in the book that he writes.
There's a trade. There's a move that keeps me up at night that I didn't make. And that, Gordon and Cap keep pressing him. Gordon's not letting anything go. He's like a dog after a steak on the floor. So Gordon keeps going after it. And finally he gets him to say, it was 11 years ago. So now we're talking 2014.
Yeah.
They were still in rebuilding mode. And it was a pitcher. So a pitcher that he could have acquired in 2014. And at one point, Gordon's like, Scherzer. And he didn't really react to it, but I can't think of who the player would be. I would love to know what that deal was. Who's a pitcher and a pitcher's still playing today, so that's why he won't tell the story.
Can you imagine if they had Scherzer at that time?
In 2016, if they had Scherzer,
then
Lester, Hendricks, and Arrieta Prime, there's no way they don't win multiple World Series. Well, they would have won one in 15.
They would have won 15
and 16.
The window would have opened up quicker than it actually did,
And my guess,
Scherzer's the reason, a big reason, I'd say, why the Nationals ended up winning a World Series during that window.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm spitballing in my head. I'm like, okay, so is he already thinking about, is Eloy already part of the franchise? You know what I mean? Like, is it players he's thinking about, like, we ended up trading this guy anyways, and we didn't get the return that would have been Scherzer or whatever was being asked. I just would love to know.
Yeah.
That one was driving me. The whole time I was riding the car, I was like, Godfather says, or Verlander. No, they talked about Verlander. And he's like, yeah, that would have been a good one. This came after the Verlander talk, and he's like, well, there is one that keeps me up at night.
But would they have even signed him for the money that Washington did? That's the other piece of it. It's, you have that year, but then what happens?
Right. Or is it something else like a throw-in player? Because he kind of hinted at that too, where you don't really think it's a guy. Like Hendricks kind of became a smaller piece. Is it a Tatis type of move where someone was available and you were just like, now, obviously, it's not Tatis because he said pitcher. But now that that's out there, I want him to be peppered until he tells the story.
Yeah. Are we for sure that it was a free agent?
No.
It could have been a
trade?
trade?
It sounded like he was saying there was a trade offered to him in 2014 for a pitcher. A pitcher was going to come to the Cubs. He didn't make the deal, and it keeps him up at night. Still today. So it's got to be somebody that's like...
And again, they're still playing.
Yeah, it's somebody that's still playing. It's somebody that's really, really good and that they would have had in their prime. So it's got to be Scherzer.
There's so much from this interview, like I said. But my biggest takeaway from it for sure is that this is the most transparent Jed Hoyer has been in his entire tenure as president. Mm-hmm. And like...
It was a good interview.
As much as the Schwarber quote bothers me, as much as it does, like, at least there's a little bit more closure for me on it, because I think a lot of fans for sure, well, it's not even a lot of fans. I think everyone always thought it had to do with money. But at the end of the day, Jed's the one doing it, so he gets a lot of blame for that. So that's why I was so surprised that he said it, because he's purposely just putting Tom and the Ricketts family out there saying, you're the reason that I made this mistake.
The end of the podcast sure sounded that way.
We all silly like the mayor.